Hello and welcome to the Football New South Wales Community Podcast. This is episode 4 of our 6-part Extra Time series recorded at our 2024 Football New South Wales Coaching Conference. If you want to hear more of what it's all about, skip back to episode 1 for a brief introduction and tune in to the 3 previous interviews. In episode 4, we hear from former Socceroos head coach Graham Arnold, who takes us through 3 key tips to be a high-performing coach. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Extra Time podcast. My name is Gareth Long. It's day 2 of the Football New South Wales Coaching Conference, another scorching hot day. And I'm lucky enough to be joined by Graham Arnold, probably a man that doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to do a brief one, Graham. So, Graham...
Make sure it's brief.
It will be brief. Graham is a former Socceroo, as well as a former head coach of Central Coast Mariners and Sydney FC, and of course, former national team head coach, taking Socceroos to the round of 16 in 2022. Graham earlier spoke to the coaches at the conference and gave a really insightful talk around his coaching journey and his coaching beliefs. So I'm going to try and delve into some of those a bit more as well. So, Graham, thank you for your time.
No problem at all. Great to be here.
All right. Well, we have a challenge. All right. Our challenge is to come up with 3 key tips to being a high-performing coach, and we're going to try and do that in under 20 minutes. I like the title because it's a high-performing coach, not necessarily just a high-performance coach. So I'm hoping we can agree on some key tips that will resonate for everybody, whether they're under 9s, JDL youth, or a potential future head coach of the Socceroos. So that's the challenge.
No problem at all.
All right. Well, first question then, Graham. What are some of the outcomes of a high-performing coach?
I think obviously always the expectations of coaching is quite challenging, but you've always got to make sure that you are prepared for anything, and you have a plan A, B, and C. I think if you only got one plan, and if something changes in either game or a player gets injured or send off or whatever, that you've got to also have a plan B. And if the opposition plays a different structure, you've got to be ready for that as well, even if you haven't prepared for it. So I think being flexible in that type of thing with a mindset of what's best for the players and what the players' strengths are, but also working on their weaknesses is important as well.
Okay, so we got some outcomes of players and teams. Do we often forget the outcomes for the coach themselves and forget about their nice outcomes for them as a high performing coach?
Yeah, but you only you get rewarded as a coach with the development or the success of the team. And I think as a coach, how I've been probably the last 15, 20 years, I was always thinking of myself last. I always put everyone, the players first. They're the ones who are out there performing and making sure their headspace is clear and their brains clear, that they know exactly what you want from them. Backroom staff making sure that they're all happy and they're doing their jobs well. And if you win and you've been successful and you win a championship or you win a trophy or you win games, then the coach always gets rewarded with that.
Brilliant. You mentioned having a plan A, but also being flexible enough, perhaps not for that to be the only plan, and think of other possible ways of doing things. So, sort of 2 questions to this, really. What sort of things does a high-performing coach need to consider in their planning? And I'm interested whether you were always like that, or that planning preparation was something that you developed.
I developed, definitely. Like, for example, you're down 1-0, 20 minutes to go, and you only normally got one. Say you play a 4-3-3 and you've just got one striker, then if you're down 1-0, you might as well lose 2-0. So then you might as well go 2 9s or change the system, change the way, because a lot of opposition teams, they don't adapt and they don't have a plan B. Even on my match sheet for the last 20 years, I'll have the starting lineup the way we want to play with what we've worked on all week, and I'll have the plan A. But then on the other page, I'll have four small fields on the sheet of paper, and I'll have plan A, plan B, C, D, and E for what happens just in case. And I just find that because I'm doing that on the paper, it's going into my brain that I'm ready in case, and it can be the same like against Denmark when we're up 1-0 with 10 minutes to go. I went to a back five, and you've got to take the players through that. And it don't take, even if it's only for a minute and a half at training, 2 minutes. Right, we're up 1-0. We're going to go to a back five. Bring Bailey right on, put him in the back five. Okay, 5-4-1. And this is how we're going to defend more than attack. And we use it as a counter attack. But again, it's the preparation and the planning is crucial to coaching. If you don't prepare for each scenario, but also prepare the fitness levels of the players, prepare, the set pieces, prepare everything, well then you're hoping that things will occur when they probably won't.
It's really nice when, I think when I asked that question, I thought you were going to talk about coaching sessions. So it's really nice that you talked about match day. And it's also nice to sort of realise it's the, great changes are not just intuition, but they've been planned and thought through.
That's the whole thing. If you don't plan it, then you're asking for help. It's all luck. Like I'm just saying against Denmark, I don't know if you saw it, but they changed their system to a 4-2-2-2. But their coach, because they hadn't prepared training, he wrote it down on a piece of paper and he gave it to Ericsson on the pitch, the captain. And after Ericsson read it and saw it, he threw the paper on the ground. Mitchell Duke picked it up and brought it over to the sideline and showed us exactly, what they were going to do. But, it's just crucial that, again, with coaching, that you're open-minded. Because, if there's only one way and that's a highway, and if it doesn't work and you stick to it, then it won't work. So you might have, what's the use of playing, for example, your formation, your way is a 4-3-3, for example. But if you don't have wingers, why play a 4-3-3? You've got to find the style that suits the personnel and the quality that you've got. If you're as a professional coach, anyway, recruitment is the key initially, because if you want to play a certain style, well, then you need to make sure you go and recruit wingers and you recruit the type of players that suit the system and the style. But when you a lot of times when you go into a job, you inherit. And if you're inheriting the players that are already there, then you have to find a way to get the best out of them with a system that suits the individual.
Brilliant. I think that's a definite takeaway for all of us to have. Let's focus on match day plans, and perhaps if we've considered those, we can actually do more observation and noticing while the games are going on. There's
one thing Gus Hiddink taught me as well, and I'm always open and honest because I want to help as much as I can. It was eliminating excuses, he used to say, to players these days. The old days, the players took responsibility if they made a mistake or they didn't, whatever. And Gus used to say, right, especially club training, eliminate excuses. Okay, how do you do that, boss? Okay, well, if you don't practice set pieces for and you don't score, the players will say, well, we didn't practice set pieces for. If you don't practice set pieces against and you concede, the players will say, well, we didn't practice set pieces against. And it's the same with the build-up and the attacking patterns or, the defensive structure or the defensive press. And he said, so you've got to tick every box to make sure. And that's how I always built the week when I was at Clubland with the Mariners and Sydney FC. It was the same type of thing. If you don't do a presentation to the players about the style of play or the system that you're going to play, well, then they can go out there and their brains won't be clear exactly what to do.
Yeah, it's really nice. Links very closely to Phil Miles' presentation yesterday around game models and making sure everything's aligned to that. That's great. Well, I reckon we're good to lock in tip one, Graham. If you're happy with it, we'll lock in planning and preparation as a key tip to be a high-performing coach.
Yeah, again, it's without a plan, without preparing to do it, then it won't work.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on now. Then you obviously have a large squad when you're away at the World Cup, and when you're a head coach of a club, you've got lots of players that maybe you don't have to keep happy, but it'd be nice to keep everybody happy in a perfect world. And they'll all have lots of different personalities, lots of different needs, lots of different strengths. So how much of high-performing coaching is knowing more than the X's and the O's?
Yeah, Terry Venables had a saying when I was actually playing in 97, 98, that players 12 to 23 are more important than 1 to 11, because it's man management and how you manage those players that are not playing and the effect they can have on the performance. If, again, for the substitutions not playing, are they also focused on, you get an injury in the first minute, to come on and do their job and do exactly what you're asking them to do. So then it's about communication, and most of the time it's about, I would sit down with a player. I'd even with the Socceroos and that, I'd always name the starting lineup the night before, or the training session, to do the training session for the starting 11. But I'd walk around and put my arm around the ones who weren't starting and explain to them why. Whether it's tactical, it's never personal. It's never personal. It's for tactical reasons, or you haven't trained well this week or whatever. But be honest, because man management, the key, I believe anyways, over the years, is if the one time that you lie to someone, one player, all you have to do is lie to one player that's around the dressing room. Within no time, he's a liar. Coach is a liar. Then that affects the culture. It affects the mentality of all the boys. But if you're always honest and straight with the players, well, then you will always, in my view, get a substandard good reaction when they're on the bench. So when they come on, they've got the energy to go out there and do the job. And as I said, 1 to 11 are always happy because they're starting. But 12 to 23, you have different reactions from players. But, some players walk around, mope around, and you just got to go grab them, pick them up. Come on, let's go. I wish, and I said this many times with the Socceroos before I announced the starting 11, I wish I could change the rules. I wish I could select 23 players to start, but that's not the rules. So I have to make these decisions, and let's get on with it.
So that player management, Graham, I assume it's saying that you again developed over your coaching career, but you would have learned off other people as well, good or bad. Have you got any sort of examples of one of those or both of those?
Yeah, look, as I said in there, was I probably started my coaching career in completely the wrong way. And you always look back on things. And, I started in 99, player coach at Northern Spirit. I was the worst coach ever, but I was leading by example as a player, right? But I was a player coach, and I did that for 1.5 years, 2 years. And I was really at the crossroads whether I wanted to actually coach and be a head coach at that stage, because I was shit, to be honest. and I didn't speak to any of the players. I had a little room upstairs at North Sydney Oval, and I didn't want to communicate with them because I was 37, 38 at the time. And the preparation planning, there was zero. Just go play, because that's how I was as a player. And then once I got into, I was assistant coach to Farina with the Socceroos and that. But as I said in the meeting, inside before, is probably the goose hitting experience. As I said, what I learnt in 1 year would have taken me 10 years on my own, especially here in Australia. He taught me so many good things, but the one little negative probably was, if you asked any of the players that played under him in 2006, how was Goose hitting? They'd all say, "Oh, great coach." What was he like as a person? I wouldn't have a clue. He didn't speak to us, But Gus was. But when I went to PSV, where he was coaching PSV at the same time he was coaching us, he was a completely different man with the club players, because then it was everyday man management, and you could see him laughing and joking with them.
And do you think that was conscious of him, or just the environment?
Yeah. The way he treated Harry Kuehl and Big Mark Viduka and that was, it was basically, these days it'd be probably he would have got done for bullying, right? But he knew how to get the best out of those guys, And I never forget, we were training in Holland one time, and we were at Hoenderloo, and we just did a session, and all the boys were there, absolutely knackered from training, and they're laying on the ground, and Mark Viduka's laying there, and he says, Viduka goes, hey, boss, in front of everyone, hey, boss, why are you coaching us? We're shit. We haven't qualified for a World Cup for 32 years. Like, why are you doing it? And Hiddink just looked at him in front of everyone and just went, why? Because when you lose 5 kilos, you're going to take us to the World Cup. And that's when Viduka went back to his club, right? And he scored 4 against Liverpool. And he lost 4 kilos. Then he came in, and we had to play Solomon Islands in the playoffs. Solomon Islands. And Hiddink gave him the captaincy. And he said, you're taking us to the World Cup because you lost 5 kilos. Well done, Dukes. And the rest of the boys were like, wow. Yeah. And then he always, started Harry Kuehl on the bench against Uruguay. And but it was his way of getting the best out of Harry. Harry comes on, sets up the goal and all that stuff. And he's just the way he played with people's brains. And that's another learning that I've learned over the years was, man management, the side of the way he man managed people, especially with us, because he had a clause in his contract that he could only work for Australia for 28 days, right, leading into the World Cup. So he planned everything back from that we wouldn't get through the last 16, and that was his last day of the 28 days. He planned it all the way back, cancelled, so the 2 Solomon Island games were home and away. He turned up on the Thursday or the Wednesday, and we were playing on the Friday night. And he cancelled a friendly against Colombia over in South America in case we got Colombia, and he's all that type of stuff. And then we qualified for the last 16. He walks on the bus, and he says, "Well, that's me done." He says, "My contract says 28 days." I said, "Brilliant, I'll take it from here."
So it worked out.
But he's great.
All right, well, let's lock in tip number 2 then. Player management.
Man management.
The importance of that
is crucial. As I said in there before, just quickly, everyone has 2 lives, professional and personal. And if one of them is not right, and I don't know about it as a coach, and one of the players has a relationship issue or, a family issue or whatever, and you can see in the energy of the player, they're not right. If I don't go over and say, hey, is everything okay? How's home? How's the wife? How's the kids? Or how's the partner? Whatever. I've sent players home who've just had babies, right? And they can't sleep at night because of the baby waiting. They come up, they turn up, they're absolutely knackered and they're so tired. I say, right, go home, have a good sleep and get yourself ready for the game. You'll be right. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the man, as I said, if one or the other will affect. If your personal life's not right, let's try the issue. Always the challenge is getting both the same. If one's not right and one's fallen, it'll drag the other one down.
Brilliant. So I guess for some coaches, it might just be asking their players how their day was at school on the way. Thank you, Graham. Right, we've got to get to tip number 3. Okay, so final question. Coaching's tough. It's not easy, whether you're under 9s, you're in the JDL, MPL, or Socceroo head coach. But what is a quality that all coaches need to be high performing?
Well, for me, it's passion and hard work. Be prepared. You're prepared to work hard. I think coaching is now probably close to the only trade in the world where you can cop abuse. You can cop all the shit on social media, and people can say whatever they want to a coach. When you're walking off the field, you can get called all the names under the sun, and people can get away with it. So you've got to strongly believe in yourself and block all that stuff out. But it all gets down to the passion of coaching and as I said with the other ones, planning and man management, the passion of it and hard work, because it's a hard gig. It's a hard gig, but the satisfactions, like when you have a week of training and as I said, and you've got the passion to do it all and you've got the hard work and the plan works and you win. There's no better feeling in life than when it works. Yeah, when it doesn't work, okay, then you have to take ownership, responsibility. I think one of the biggest things for me as well is when you lose, first thing you do as a coach is you look in the mirror and look at yourself. Don't deflect blame on, whether it's travel, whether it's heat, whether it's, because it's all the same. Your opponents have exactly the same conditions and everything to play under. So for me, it's you look in the mirror, right, and reflect on the week that you've just had or the days you just had. What did you do at training? Did you overtrain? Did you undertrain? Did you, change things too much that the players were confused or things like that? First, look in the mirror and be honest with yourself and say, okay, well, yep, I did wrong. I didn't do right this week. Take responsibility in front of the players.
Yeah, brilliant. Look, we know that player development in New South Wales and Australia will rely a lot on coaches' passion and hard work, but I like the bit you added in there as well about that self-reflection, honest self-reflection. So, Graham, that was tip number 3, passion and hard work. So, do you want to summarise your 3 tips or do you want me to do it?
You can do it.
I'll do it, just in case you forgot. Tip number 1, to be a high-performing coach. Number 1, planning and preparation. Number 2, player management. Number 3, passion and hard work. Graham, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate your contributions across the day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Football New South Wales Community Podcast, where we've been featuring the Extra Time series recorded at the 2024 Football New South Wales Coaching Conference. Tickets are now on sale for the 2025 Club Development Conference, with more details and ticket information at footballnsw.com.au.